Iron Square. I'm doing another dev blog entry for the RPG Maker, which is what we finished last month. So I finished last Friday with RPG Maker, and I just kind of wanted to rehash some of the different lessons I learned about doing this project and some of the things that maybe you can look at if you're trying to do a project like this. So I do feel like, first off, that splitting up the project and putting it in 4 different weeks and what needed to be accomplished in each week was very good, very focused for me. Actually, tomorrow I'll be talking to Chris DeLeon about this project and then about different goals in the future for myself. And I'll probably do a little bit of an interview with him, but mostly it's going to be a conversation about goals, I believe. So first, some of the things I was pretty, just some different issues that came up. So first off, we had a lot of the team issues. I had 3 members on a team. I had set on week 2 to basically say, hey, there's no more team members, but that actually ended up being a drop dead date to be like, if I didn't see any work from any team members, which I really didn't, that I had to basically drop those team members. So the team went from 4 people down to 1, being myself only. Experienced a lot of interesting stuff with pixel artwork. I have a newfound respect for a lot of people that do pixel artwork now that I've tried to do some myself. I didn't even really do any from scratch. What I did was I found a gelatinous cube online, a small one that was 32 by 32, and I made it a 64 by 64. Went ahead and gave the person credit in my credits on the game. And then also the other 2 pixel art pieces were basically recolors of different things. In fact, I could pull those up right here. I'll just do that real quick while I'm talking. Music, my brother was supposed to be my big music person, but that kind of fell through because he got busy with work. And due to that problem, we just didn't. I just basically had to use a lot of stock music, or I actually ended up using some of the music that we got in the Humble Bundle. So it wasn't horrible, but I would have preferred to have made my own music, especially the combat music. A lot of people have the combat music, and I wanted to differentiate myself from the field to use different combat music. I don't know if we're actually going to be able to see it here. I guess not, because of the way that the combat scripts work. You've got this down here, and it doesn't really matter what's over here for graphics. This is just a stub graphic. It's actually making a call to the graphics down here, so I actually have to look that up, and I didn't prep that prior to this. But you can see on the game I have like a ghost that was made from a specter, a black specter, and I basically recolored the black into white. And then I took a dog, I took a wolf dog model, and I made it into like a zombie dog model. So basically a lot of recolors. The zombie dog was a little bit more, and then the gelatinous cube I basically made larger, and I threw a sword inside of it. And so each one of those pixel arts took about 3 to 4 hours for each one of those characters, and that was only 3 of them. So a good amount of time went into that. So I did finish the project. I went ahead and submitted it on Friday. I put together a trailer for it on my YouTube channel, which is I felt like that came out pretty well given the time period. It was about 2 a.m. Friday night or Saturday morning when I had finally worked on it. And what I found as I was going through the game is some of the stuff, like the biggest thing was the ending wasn't triggering properly at the very end of the game. So luckily I had submitted a link to the game. I had already uploaded it earlier in that day, but I didn't fully activate it on the website, on the indie website here for the Indie Game Maker contest. So I had to re-upload it, a new version, after I fixed it, and that actually gave me the ability to fix some of the combat and make it a lot better, because some of the combat I felt like was drawing out a little bit too long. So I reduced hit points on some enemies and fiddled with a couple of stats here and there. But other than that, I mean, everything was fine in the game. It worked perfectly fine. It's just the combat was the pacing on it was a little bit too long on a lot of the fights. So made that a lot better, which will probably do better for me because the judges only have like an hour to do each entry. And as of right now, this is the 30th, there are about 400, because we got 40 pages at 10 per page, there's 400 entries in the RPG category alone. In the non-RPG category, it looks like, let's see, there's 100, no, 150, 100, no, 200, 250, it looks like, so about 280 entries in the non-RPG category as of right now. And we've got, I mean, in my time frame, I've got about an hour left till midnight, so that I'm not sure if there's going to be like what the exact cutoff time is, but it's basically tonight is the last cutoff to get your submissions in for this. So by the time you see this video, you won't be able to submit. Which kind of brings me to my next point, which is the possible disqualification. So there's a chance that my project might get disqualified, and the reason why is because under the guidelines, they wanted you to start a project with nothing prior to that, and then like you could have some assets and stuff and other things, and then complete it, which is what I did. I basically completed a chapter 2 of a pre-existing story. So I hope that they look at that and they don't disqualify me, but if they do, it's not that big of a deal because I've already felt that I gained so much by doing this that just being disqualified in the contest isn't a huge deal, but you know, it would dishearten me a little bit. Because I feel like maybe next year what would be nice is if they had a category, or maybe more categories. They had like a team category, a singles category, and then I feel like there should be a continuing story category as well. I mean, with 400 entries, I mean, we could easily split up the categories a little bit more, and then it would be nice. I think that they don't have enough judges really to handle this kind of workload. I think they've got like 8 judges. So I mean, I hope that everything goes well. I wouldn't be surprised to not see any outcomes for this for maybe a month up to 2 months, because if they're spending an hour per game with 400 entries, that's 400 hours in the RPG category, another 280 hours in the non-RPG category. So we'll see. But you know, out of time constraints, they may just say, you know what, this guy, we'll probably just disqualify him anyways. But I mean, on top of that, there's other prizes as well. Apparently there's like a community involvement. So I've done a lot of tweeting. Obviously I have the dev blogs that I've been doing on my YouTube channel, and then if you look up RPG Maker or RPG Maker contest, the funniest thing to me is down here DevBlog 7 shows up, which is my dev blog, which is pretty exciting to see in Google searches. That you type in RPG Maker and this is one of the very first things that comes up. So I'm not sure if that's because I'm popular or if that's because RPG Maker is popular and that's what people just kept looking at. Although this is a Google, this goes to my Google Plus, and it hasn't gotten that many +1s. So I haven't gotten a single one besides the one I have. So I mean, maybe just a lot of people don't use Google Plus. I'm not really that sure about it. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I'm pretty happy with the way that Constantine turned out episode 2. I look forward to doing new episodes and adding on more content. I definitely want to take the game in a direction where the enemy character is going to be a character that you're going to want to identify with a little bit more. So like we've seen a lot more now in fiction, like enemy characters that have backstory that are a little bit more human, where you kind of feel bad for them, and I kind of want that to be a thing with this character moving forward, and I want there to be a possibility of redemption also for that character, which I don't think has been seen too much in most games in general. Like most of the time a bad guy is a bad guy and you have to kill him, and a good guy is a good guy, and so I definitely want to build in some flaws to my good guys, and I want to show the flawed nature of my bad guy in the future. I feel like that was another weak point in this game, was the storytelling was pretty weak. It was more combat oriented. We basically get a mission and we go across a mountain, do a lot of combat on the way there, and it's very, very low on the actual plotline storyline this time. You have to do a lot of just kind of digging into what's going on. I added a bunch of text inside the town of Darkshire as the player's walking around, where they can just trigger different text and different things, but it's not really heavy on plotline. That's just the way that this scenario was designed when I wrote it. This is another Dungeons and Dragons module that I had written, and I basically transferred the ideas from it and made it into a module for the game. I do think that going forward that this is a better way to do RPGs in general, is to do them in some sort of a modular format, because this gives people that have like 2 hours to spend on a game something where they feel like they've completed something, and they can come back and there's an overarching plot line and story, but they can come in and do things in small chunks and not be completely lost. This is also modeled after a lot of what I'm seeing in animes lately. One of my favorite series is Bleach, and there are a ton of characters. And in Bleach, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll leave characters like in the real world for entire seasons, and you won't see them, and then they'll come back to that. And with that type of idea in mind, like they can have short snippets of plot line in each episode, and I don't feel like it's like Dragon Ball Z, where it is that when I'm watching Bleach, I feel like I kind of got ripped off and nothing happened in the episode. I want something to happen, and so I feel like that's something that players want too when they're playing. They want games not to be extremely long like Final Fantasy Epics, where it is that you can get lost. Like if you put a Final Fantasy down for like 3 weeks, you better have a player's guide or something, because you're going to get completely lost in the plot line, and you're going to feel like you need to backtrack, or you're going to need to look something up if you really care about the plot line, which I would hope that you would if you're playing that type of game. So I think that moving forward, it would be better to do RPGs as some sort of episodic format like I'm doing right now, where the target is about 2 hours of gameplay. We basically have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and the player's going to feel like they finished something, and then they can move forward from that. So I think that, and that would also, in a business model way of sense of things, it would be a good way to do things, because then you can just keep releasing more releases of the game, and people can just kind of come back to it and do a little bit more here and there, and you keep people interested, I guess, that way. So you don't, they can plow through it all in one Netflix session, I guess, type of thing. But yeah, so now I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but basically some of the things I wanted to talk about in this dev blog I already did. So we had some team issues at the beginning of the month. I really feel like that was a big growth point for me in the future to fix those issues. What I'm going to do is, if you don't have anything produced basically within like maybe the first 3 days, or depending on what the timeline is, within the first week, you're going to get dropped from the team if I decided to ask you to try to work with you. Pixel artwork was another thing where I feel like I need to start working on it now, like even in the off times, where I can have my own library that I can reach back into and do some pixel, I'll have that pixel artwork ready to go, so that way things will flow a lot better, and things will make more sense together. Music's another thing I really kind of kept feeling like I needed to work on, or I wanted to have my own original music that wasn't in other games, so I need to kind of delve into that, or find a music type of person. Again, possible disqualification of the project, which is not a big problem. It's not a big loss for me. There are about 400 entries right now, so the chances of me standing out amongst those other entries, I mean, that would be amazing. But I have seen some of the other entries with a lot of these teams that are much larger, with much more well-developed ideas, with games that were released basically as soon as the contest dropped. They just simply hadn't been released yet, and so because that fit within the guidelines, they basically dropped their game and just released it for the contest. So I'm not saying that's not fair. I mean, that's within the guidelines, so I don't think that's a big deal. And just was pretty stoked, pretty happy with myself to finish strong. And I even the last minute stuff, when I was staying up really late on Friday to push things out, it was really important for me to finish it on Friday. Even though I knew I had 3 days, I wanted to have my weekend, for one, and two, that was the deadline I had set down on paper, was the Friday, not the Monday. So it was very, very important for me to finish on time, and to make sure that things were out the door, to set a precedent for myself for future game projects. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching all of my dev vlogs. If you have been watching, if you haven't, go back and look at them. If you go back to the Constantine dev vlogs, there'll be a download of the game that you can try out. Other than that, this is Darren Squire signing off, saying God bless you and your families, and try not to rage too much out there.